my name is Donovan, and tonight I'm excited to share with you another phone from Umidigi. This is the Umidigi Power. It is a phone that is very budget friendly. If you're familiar with Umidigi, they are definitely known for their budget friendly devices, and this one is a pretty special one because of that power name. It indicates that yes, there is a huge battery here. So we have a 5150 milliamp hour battery, as you can see right here, and they are nice enough to run through all the specs, which we'll run through in just a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and talk about the price, and we'll unbox this bad boy and see what all it has to offer. So here you can see it's available on Amazon.com. I'll leave a link down in the description. If you purchase it using that link, it does help me out. Amazon does give me a small little kickback from your purchase, so definitely help out the channel by purchasing using that link. And it's available in both black and gold for $140, but then you can see there's a coupon for $10 off, bringing it down to $129.99, which this is a fairly similar phone to the Moto G7 Power. So the Moto G7 Power has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. This one has a 5,150 milliamp hour battery, so a little bit bigger. This one does also have some extra specs that you don't get in the Moto G7 Power, and then some things that it's missing, but we'll talk about those in just a little bit. So first of all, this is using the MediaTek 6765 processor. That is the Helio P35. That's the other name for it. It is a octa-core processor, all A53 chips. If you're not familiar with that, it's okay. We're going to run through a speed test just to see how fast that processor is and compare it up to some other ones. But you can see here it is a 2.3 gigahertz processor. We have Android 9.0 on board. We have 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of onboard storage. So I believe the Moto G7 Power that I had 3 and 32. I had to give it away to a friend who needed a phone, so I don't unfortunately have it to compare. But I believe the one I had was 3 and 32, and that one was $200. This one does come with a 2 SIM card option, or you can use 1 nano SIM and a SD card, so you can expand the memory via SD card. I already mentioned that battery. This one comes with a 1080p display. It's 6.3 inch full HD plus, so that's great. The Moto G7 Power only had a 720p display, so this one has a little bit better display. This one also has dual cameras on the back, so 16 and 5 megapixels, and then a front camera of 16 megapixels as well. Then you can see it supports pretty much all the bands out there. I will try to use it with Verizon just so I can let you guys know how that's going to work. But first, let's go ahead and unbox it and see what all you get in the box. Typically, Umidigi does include a screen protector and case. And this one, I should also mention, does charge at 18 watts, so a little bit faster charging as well. We get our typical thanks cards, and apparently they wanted to double thank me because they sent 2 of them. Not really sure why. Here is the phone itself, and yes, you can see it does already have a case on it, and it does have a screen protector on it. Hopefully I don't accidentally remove it. So that is just the plastic covering the screen protector, and you can see there is a screen protector on there. We'll go ahead and power it on. And this is pretty much typical with every Umidigi phone that I've ever used. There's our dual cameras, fingerprint sensor in the back. We'll have to test that out because Umidigi phones from time to time have good fingerprint sensors, and other times they're not very good. So we'll have to test that out. We have our power button, volume rocker, and this is the case it comes with, of course. And it looks like there's a little screen protector for the back as well, because I believe this does have a glass back, but we'll test that out or check that out in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and get that case off. So it is a thin TPU case, pretty typical with what you get from Umidigi. And on the back, actually, hold on, is this glass? I think this is actually plastic. This one actually feels more plasticky than the other ones. Typically you get glass backs, but I do like that it actually has a little bit of texture to it. Ultimately, I'm going to end up using it with the case anyways, but you know, it's there. And let's go ahead and remove the SIM tray just so we can see what the SIM tray looks like. Now, I already mentioned that it is, let's see if we can actually find it. So it does use Type-C. It does have a headphone jack. We have a speaker down here at the bottom. Looks like there's a microphone up here at top, and there's our 16 megapixel camera as well. And then this is our SIM tray removal. So let's go ahead and pop that open. And all right, there we go. So we have this one can be a SIM or a SD card, and this one is our other SIM tray. So we'll go ahead and pop in my T-Mobile SIM into it, and we'll get it fired up. I'll go ahead and run through the setup process, and then we'll come back in just a moment and see what all this thing has to offer. All right, so I've had the opportunity to use the Umidigi Power for about 24 hours now, so I want to go ahead and share with you some of my just kind of first-hand experiences with the device so far. So let's go ahead and start off with the performance of the device. I'm going to jump right into Geekbench. So if you're unfamiliar with Geekbench, basically it just kind of gives you an idea of what kind of performance you can expect from a device based off of these scores. So we have a single core score of 906, multi-core score of 3725. So that puts it right in the middle of what you'd expect from a mid-range device. Generally, with mid-range devices, you're looking at somewhere between 2,000 and 4,000 on the multi-core score. So this is definitely kind of on that higher end. What does that mean in day-to-day usage? Well, basically, it just means that pretty much anything you throw at this phone, it's going to handle. The exception being if you're trying to play games like PUBG and you're trying to play them on higher intensive graphics, you will run into some stutters there. A couple other things that I'll mention that I've had some issues with. So I did try to play NBA Jam for some reason or another. That game is not cooperating with the phone, so every time I try to open it up, you'll see that basically it opens up and then it closes. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that one, but that is the only other issue I've really run into as far as the performance of the phone goes. I played games like FIFA. That one played just fine. Force Arena, Star Wars Force Arena. Not super high intensive graphic games, but they are moving quite a bit, and so far the phone hasn't had any issues handling it. Social media is running just fine. Facebook Messenger, which is kind of a heavier app, I have experienced a few stutters with that one, but that's honestly true with even some of the higher end phones. Facebook Messenger just kind of, for some reason or another, stutters on a lot of devices. So that being said, performance has been pretty spot on with what I would expect from a phone at this price point. In fact, maybe it's even better than what I would expect from a phone at this price point, because you have to remember that this phone is only $130. So as far as performance goes, I do think that this phone is performing quite well up to this point. The next thing to talk about is that battery life. So obviously, with it being a 5150 milliamp hour battery, you'd expect amazing battery life, and I'll say that right off the bat, yes, this phone is going to give you fantastic battery life. I definitely think that 2 full days of battery life is you can probably be expected unless you're watching games or playing games constantly, watching videos constantly. That will drain the battery down a little bit faster, but as far as the battery goes, yeah, this is definitely easily a 1 day phone, and for most people I think you can easily get through 2 full days of usage. I've been using it on Wi-Fi. You can see that it does have voice over Wi-Fi, so that does help with phone call quality. If I go and switch off my Wi-Fi, you can see that this is 4G LTE. With T-Mobile, I'm getting perfect coverage, which is pretty much what I would expect at my house. I get really good coverage with T-Mobile. So this phone so far has been really good on point with that. As far as phone call quality goes, that actually has been an issue with some previous Umidigi phones. The microphones on this phone so far have been really good, and so far no issues with phone calls. I've had up to this point 3 test phone calls, and a couple of them were actually planned phone calls. But yeah, so phone call quality has been really great. A couple areas where I would say maybe this phone isn't the greatest. Number one is with the camera. As you would expect with a phone at this price point, the cameras, even though it is like a 16 and 5 megapixel camera, they are just a little bit on the slow end. So if I go ahead and take a picture of, let's say, like these Samsung earbuds, these are the Samsung Galaxy Buds, you can kind of see there's already a little bit of stutter in me moving my hand. You can kind of see that. This is when you're using the bokeh. So the idea behind bokeh is that we're basically kind of attempting to mimic what you get off of a DSLR phone, and you can see that even with that I'm having issues even trying to load that. So that is one area where I've noticed there's kind of been some stutters. If you go into the regular picture mode, you'll see that it does take pictures a whole lot faster. Let's switch it off of the camera looking at me, but let's go ahead and take a quick picture. So you can see that with the regular picture mode, it's a whole lot faster. There isn't that stutter that you get with the bokeh mode, and you can see kind of by default it automatically blurs out the background, similar to what you'd get with a DSLR anyways. So I'll go ahead and show you just a few pictures that I took. So far, I mean, in good lighting, obviously, as with any camera, regardless of the price point, in good lighting, it will take some pretty decent pictures. Now, it does feature HDR, so for lower light photos, you do have that option. It's not the best HDR, but it's there. And again, this is only a $130 phone. In video, It does shoot in up to 1080p, but I want to point out a couple of things here. Number one, it does have EIS, or electronic image stabilization. So the idea behind electronic image stabilization is that you're going to get stable footage when you're walking or maybe not holding your phone quite still. The idea is that you're supposed to get stable footage, but what I found is that it definitely does not live up to the hype in terms of electronic image stabilization. It kind of performs as you'd expect with a cheaper phone. This was actually a really cool picture. I did not use bokeh mode, but there was a bee in that flower, just kind of got in close, and it took a great picture of that. Here's some other, but this one's actually with bokeh mode on. You can see it kind of blurs out that background, brought up those flowers, just selfie picture there. Now this is the actual footage of me walking, and you can see that that it definitely is very, very shaky. That was with electronic image stabilization turned on. Obviously is not the most stable of footage, so that would be one area where you're definitely experiencing a budget phone in terms of that. And then other than that, camera I think performs as you would expect from a phone at this price point, maybe even a little bit better again, but video quality definitely struggles a little bit, especially when trying to use that electronic image stabilization. But overall, so far, I think this is a fantastic pickup for 130 bucks. You really can't beat what this thing has to offer. It has, it's unlocked, has fantastic battery life, the cameras are good enough, and has really kind of all the features you expect from a phone in 2019, but at a cheaper price point. And again, this thing has 18-watt fast charging. It doesn't have, unfortunately, I wouldn't expect this from a phone at this price point, but it doesn't have wireless charging, so that would be a negative. It does, I didn't point this out earlier, but if we go into the settings, there is something that I was kind of caught off guard by, but it does actually have NFC. So if I go in here under connection preferences, we do have the option of NFC, which for a phone at $130, that's not a feature you're going to get very often. So the fact that it does have NFC is really cool. Alright, so before we wrap up this video, I want to mention one last thing about the phone, and that is the speaker quality. And again, this phone is featuring just a bottom-firing speaker. There is no speaker coming out of the earpiece. It's basically just used for phone calls. But let's go ahead and take a listen, and I'm just going to say that it's pretty typical of what I would expect out of an Umidigi phone. All right, so I'm not sure if you could hear it quite like I could, but what I wanted to point out there is that it definitely is a little bit tinny when it comes to the speaker quality. And even with the Umidigi phones that I've had that had dual speakers, unfortunately, they don't always have the best. And that's one area where you're definitely feeling the fact that this phone is only $130. But overall, I think for the package, this is definitely a phone worth considering, especially if you're looking for a young one who's looking to get their first phone that doesn't want something super crappy. This is a solid unlocked phone at $130, or even as a backup phone. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot them down in the comments as well. Thanks for watching. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.